Variables and expressions. When we're talking about variables, a variable is just a letter that represents a number or more than one number. So a variable is a letter that represents a number. Here, let's erase that. A number. An example of a variable expression would be an expression that uses a variable, at least one variable, and you can also have operations and numbers in it as well. So an example could be n plus 6, where n is our variable, and the plus 6 completes the expression. So n plus 6, that's a variable expression. A variable expression. Okay, so we have an n plus 6. And then to evaluate that variable expression, we'll need to know what the variable equals. So let's say, in this example, the variable equals 4. So let's say n equals 4. Now to evaluate n plus 6, we're just going to rewrite that, but instead of writing the n, we're going to write 4. So it'll be 4 plus 6. And now we can evaluate that. 4 plus 6 is 10. So we have variables and expressions, and this is a variable expression. Now when we want to write a variable expression with multiplication, that is done by just placing a number right next to a variable, and that indicates multiplication. So for example, 5n is multiplication, and what that means is 5 times n. So those are the same things. 5n is the same thing as 5 times n. Or you could also write it 5 times n, but this isn't done normally because the times sign looks like another variable. That could actually be misconstrued as 5 times x times n. So we don't use that. So we write 5 and a dot n to represent multiplication, or just 5n, which would be 5 times n. Now if n equals 2, to evaluate that expression, you would write 5 times 2. And in this case, you want to put that dot there, because if you don't put the dot, then it just looks like the number 52. And we want to represent it as multiplication. So 5 times 2 is going to be 10. Okay, that's multiplication. Now if you want to look at division, you can write it as a fraction. For example, x over 4 is division. And that's just another way of writing x divided by 4 that way. And then if you wanted to evaluate that expression, if someone, or if your problem in your book says let x equal 8, then you would rewrite this expression, but instead of writing x, you would replace it with an 8. So you would substitute the x with an 8, and you would write 8 over 4, and that's really 8 divided by 4, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So in this case we have multiplication and we have division using variables. So those are different variable expressions.